Hey guys, thanks again for coming to the channel. And if you haven't subscribed, please hit the subscribe button. If you like the videos, like them, put a comment in the bottom. Again, helps me to grow this channel and bring you more information. So today I wanted to talk about something that's really important, and that is, what do you do when you get on a group of fish? How do you approach a group of fish? How long do you stay with those fish? And how do you exactly go about it? So we're in that time of year now, we're getting towards later winter. Between now and the spawn, the fish are going to group up in small areas where, later in the year, they're going to be spread out in a lot of different places. In the fall, they're going to really be spread out until late fall. But this time of year, you can fish, 10, 12 spots sometimes and not get a bite. And then you'll pull up on a spot and there'll be a lot of fish there. And that's just kind of the way they do in late winter and pre-spawn. The only time they ever really do that like that the rest of the year would be, sometime after the spawn, just as they're going into their summer patterns. Sometimes they'll group up in big groups. And I'm going to talk about how to approach those big groups of fish and what lures that you're going to use to catch them with, and how long do you stay. So here's kind of what happens. You'll fish along, like I said, and you'll not catch much of anything. Then you'll pull up on a spot and you'll catch, boom, boom, like 1-2 fish real quick. And sometimes the tendency is, well, let me go duplicate this someplace else, and you up and leave. And that could be a really big mistake, especially this time of year, because sometimes there'll be, 30, 40 fish sitting in a small area. Now, I'm not talking about necessarily a one cast spot, but a small area. There's something about that particular area that they like. In rivers, it could be, the only thing around that's blocking the current. In lakes, it could be, a main point going into a major spawning cove, or some underwater structure outside of some marina where these fish are staging to go in and spawn. And people call these areas staging areas, and that's what they are. Well, they're not going to stage in any place if they don't have comfort and something to eat. So it has to be a place that also has bait fish or forage for the fish to eat. So either way, when you get up on a spot like this and you're not sure, are there a load of fish here or not, say you don't have forward facing sonar, or you're fishing in a flowing river or a tidal river where the bass are not generally going to show themselves on forward facing sonar. They're going to be down on the bottom next to something holding tight where you won't be able to tell they're there. But you'll be able to see if the bait is there. The pelagic fish like the white perch and the crappie and even striper sometimes could be in the area. So here's what happened to me a couple weeks ago. Fishing a tournament. Me and my buddy were fishing a tournament, and we fished along and caught one here and one there. And then we pulled up on a spot and I caught 2 real quick. And my tendency was to leave, but something said, no, you need to spin around and fish through here again with another lure. So the first couple fish come on a jig. And so I thought, well, let me pick up a crankbait. Threw a crankbait, caught 1. That's all. My buddy threw a shaky head, he caught 1. I threw a different shaky head, I caught 1. Then they quit biting the shaky head, they quit biting the jig, they quit biting the crankbait. So then I picked up a vibrating jig and caught a couple more. And then we kind of circled through this area, and the quality of the fish on that particular spot wasn't real good. So we felt like, this is not a spot that we want to commit to any longer, because we're not catching, winning quality fish. Had a lot of fish, but the fish were smaller. So then we moved around and fished some other spots and caught 1 here and 1 there. And then we pulled up on another spot and I caught 1 on a crankbait. And then I caught another one on a crankbait. And then I caught another one on a crankbait. Well, they went eating that crankbait for a while. And then they kind of quit. Well, your tendency then again is to just leave the spot. Well, we caught them. No, we didn't catch them all. So again, we went through what I call going through your progressions. And you need to do that when you're around a school of fish. You need to do several different things. The first thing you can do is continue to throw the same lure that you've been throwing, but change positions on whatever you're set up on and get a different angle. And a lot of times you think, well, it won't make a lot of difference, but it does. It makes a big difference. If you change the angle sometimes at which your bait is coming to the fish, they'll react to it where they wouldn't react to it before. Maybe something's coming into their face one way, where the other way it's coming from behind them, and they're just not going to react to it. So change your angles first. That's the first thing that you do. Then you can try changing colors with the bait that you're throwing. If you're throwing like a chartreuse color bait, you may go, especially pre-spawn, you may go to a red. And if they won't eat that, then you may go to some type of shad looking color, or even some bright chrome color, and try that. And if you can't get them to react to that, then you know it's the style and the vibration of the bait that they've gotten used to, and you can either leave and come back later and throw the same bait, or you can modify your presentation. And so what you should do next is modify your presentation. You've thrown, say, a crankbait. Now you're going to want to pick up something different. Anything different, really. You just kind of got to go through it. There's no guarantees you're going to bite anything. So you just go through your progressions. The next thing you want to pick up is something maybe slow. Flip a jig up there. That jig doesn't work, try a different color. If that doesn't work, try a different size or action of jig. If that doesn't work, then pick up a shaky head, or a worm, or a weighted Senko, or a drop shot, and go through your different colors and sizes of those. And then if that doesn't work, or if that works for a while and you catch a couple more fish on it, then it tails off, you still don't really this time of year want to leave that spot just yet until you've tried something else. Then you're going to pick up your vibrating jig or something like that, or a rattle trap, a rattling bait, and try those things. And what I like to generally do is I generally like to fish an area first with something that I feel like I'm not going to get snagged up with. Something with a single hook on it a lot of times. Or if I'm throwing a crankbait, I'm going to reel it really slow so that I don't get hung up. And I don't like to pick up like the rattle traps and things like that until I felt like I've milked the area out pretty good with other baits that I feel pretty confident I can get through whatever rocks or structure there may be down there that might hang your stuff up. And then I'll lastly throw the danger baits, that could get hung up, the jerk baits, the rattle traps, things like that. So this particular spot we stopped on and caught like 12 or 13 fish in that one stop. Caught them on crankbait first, then caught them on a jig, then caught them on a shaky head, and then finally I caught a couple, the biggest one we caught there on a vibrating jig. And you would have thought that after we'd fished all those other things that we'd caught everything that lived there. Well, we didn't catch everything that lived there. There were still several fish there, and then I picked a vibrating jig up and caught our biggest fish. And then I threw that around, and I couldn't get another bite on it, but it did catch the one key fish. So then we left the spot, and I'm saying all this to give you the approach of how to approach spots that have a lot of fish on them. We left the spot and we felt pretty comfortable that we'd be able to get back on it again a little bit later. And we got back on it, maybe 2 hours later, and we had caught some fish other places. And when we came back to the spot 2 hours later, we called all but one of the fish that we had later in the day. Warmed up a little bit, and the better fish moved up and were ready to bite. So all those fish that we caught earlier, we ended up calling all but one of them when we came back to the spot later. And when we came back later, I started off with the same crankbait that I got bit on before, and it was like, 6 out of the first 10 casts I caught a fish. And then it kind of just stopped on that. So then I thought, well, let's try to chatterbait again, and tried that, and they wouldn't touch that. And we tried a swim bait, they wouldn't touch that. So then we went back to like shaky heads and jigs and caught a couple other nice ones doing that. Ended up catching 12 or 13 more fish on the spot that we caught 12 or 13 fish 2 hours earlier, but it was a whole different group of fish than what was there earlier because we called out for the 5 that we had. So that, you know, it was a whole different group of fish that had moved in. And that's what happens, you know, in the pre-spawn especially, man. These fish are moving, they're setting up to eat someplace. They're setting up, you know, even if they're like late winter fish where they're setting up in some place where they just want to be until, you know, they start thinking about spawning. And they'll come up and down from deeper water where they're inactive, basically in a coma. And when they move up in shallower water, and that's going to be relative. When I say shallower water, that's relative based on what you're fishing. You know, if you're fishing a pond, you know, shallow water is going to be 4 or 5 feet, you know, in the wintertime. Shallow water in some reservoirs may be 8 or 10 feet in the wintertime, or they may even move up to 4 or 5 feet. Deep water in a pond or a small lake or even a river, you know, 8 or 10 feet, those fish are not biting. Those 8 or 10 foot deep fish in small ponds and rivers, they've gone to the deepest part they can go to and feel comfortable, and they're just not going to bite. So 8 or 10 feet may be the danger zone in some reservoirs or clear lakes. So these fish are going to move up usually sometime during the day on these prime spots. And the key is to keep rotating through these prime areas, these prime spots, to hit it when the fish actually move up to feed that particular day. Now, some people will take the approach, I'll just sit here all day and wait for them. And, you know, I can't do that personally. I'm just not wired to do that. I'm too impatient to do that. And that can work, but what that does is say that your presence is there. You know, your sonar is pinging, your boat is sending out, you know, vibrations and waves, you're talking, they can feel that. And to me, just your presence there maybe puts them on guard, where if you can leave them for a little while, you know, some big tournaments you can't. But if you can leave them for a little while, let them just totally get relaxed. There's no anything around, there's no sonar pinging, there's no voices vibrating down through the water, there's no shutting rod lockers and lids and all this stuff, these little noises and stuff, and just the actual presence, the shadow of the big boat up there. If you can leave them for a little while and come back, you're probably going to be better off in the long run. So go through your progressions when you get on a group of fish. Don't just throw what you like to throw the whole entire time and say, well, I've caught them all, because I guarantee you haven't. And go through your progressions from fast moving baits, deeper baits, shallower baits, different colors, different sizes, different vibrations, and you will catch more fish. Again, thanks for watching and have a blessed day.